Hello, everybody. This is Howard Storm, and I'm with Cory Odo, and we've been discussing chapter by chapter my book, My Descent into Death. We just concluded a chapter, and every once in a while we take an opportunity to do a Q&A, because a lot of people have been emailing Cory with questions, and so we want to honor those inquiries, and that's what we're going to do today. Rather than talking about a chapter in the book, we're going to address Q&As. But before I do this, something that I want to talk about, that's my big passion and my big work in life that I'm doing now, and that is I'm doing a mission project in San Victor, Belize. Belize is a small country, was a British colony, and got their independence in 1981, I believe. It's just south of Mexico, so geographically, it's really part of the Yucatan Peninsula, and it's on the coast and east of Guatemala, and on the south, it's bordered by Honduras. There's only about 300,000 people in the country. It's a small country, very mixed population. Maya Indians, mestizos, Africans who were brought over as slaves to Jamaica, and mostly Africans trace their roots back to Jamaica. And of course, the Caucasian people, the white people, largely from England and Canada, but there's a lot of Americans down there now too. After the Civil War, a lot of Confederates left the United States and went to Belize because it had slavery, and they were hoping to recreate what they had in the US with slaves and plantations and stuff, but it didn't work out for any of them. And there's lots of Chinese, Pakistanis, and people from India, because the British were importing people from their colonies to work in Belize. So it's got a real variety of kinds of people. The people that I'm working with, which is in the northwest corner of Belize, are Maya Indians and people that are part Maya and part European Spanish. So they're called mestizo. I started working in this village in 2001, and I've made 28 mission trips to this village, brought well over 1,000 people from the States down there, and we've done mission work in the village. We first thing we did was we built a 3-classroom school building for the school, which goes from kindergarten to 8th grade. And it's also a poured concrete building, so it serves the village as a hurricane shelter, as well as 3 classrooms. And we built a large Catholic church, because most of the people in the village are Catholic. Can seat about 250 people. And we've built 76 homes, mostly out of concrete block with metal roofs. And we built them to be hurricane proof. And so far, in the more than 20 years that I've been going down here, none of our houses that we've built have had any damage from hurricanes, which I'm proud of, because we built them real solid and good. And we have sent hundreds of kids from this village off to high school. In Belize, high school is not part of free education or public education. So all the high schools are privately run by different groups, and they have to pay tuition, and it's expensive. So we provided scholarships for hundreds of kids to go to high school. we also provide scholarships for kids to go to junior college and to four-year college, and we've even had some kids go on to graduate school. We've supported them in that. So we don't go down there and hand out money. In fact, in the 20 years I've been doing this, I never give anybody any money. But if you qualify, you might get a house. Because of the pandemic, there was a lot of unemployment and a lot of hunger in the village. So for a year, we supplied people with food, keep people from starving. Right now, the big project that we've been working on for about a year in the planning and about 6 months in actual building, is we're building a big community center. It's a 2-story building, concrete, and will also serve the community as a hurricane shelter. It's 60 by 35, and it has a big meeting hall. It has an apartment for a security guy with his family to live there, so that the building will always have someone living in the building, and his job will be both the maintenance of the building and making sure that it's locked up at night and opened up in the morning, and keeping the place safe and sound. There'll be a kitchen on the first floor so that people can, if they want to have celebrations in the meeting hall, they can have prepare food there. There'll be on the first floor a woman's bathroom, a men's bathroom. And then on the second floor, there'll be a women's center, which will be equipped with lots of different kinds of sewing machines, so that women can make clothes, both for their use of their family and so that they can sell them, because there's a good market for the women making clothes and selling clothes. It's a good way for a woman to make some income. Also be a place for women to get together and talk about women's stuff, which I'm sure there'll be plenty of that going on. There'll be a nursery to take care of little kids when the women are doing stuff. And we're going to have 2 classrooms on the second floor. And then, not least by any means, on the second floor will be an office for the mayor of the village, who's an elected official every few years. And there'll be a council person's meeting room with a big conference table and, filing cabinets and things like that for the council people. The government of this village, which is elected every few years, they've never had an office. So what they've done traditionally is, because there's a bunch of them and the houses are small, they meet in someone's yard and have their village council meetings and decide all the business of the village. So for the first time in the history of the village, they'll actually have offices and a place to meet. And we're going to do it up proud with nice furniture and stuff like that. And I'm excited about it because I want to lift up the people that take responsibility for keeping this village going, keeping it safe. They're everything in the village. There's no paid employees in the village. There's no police. There's no nothing. It's just the village council and the mayor that run the show there. The village is about 900 people. It's this relatively small village. Everybody knows everybody. Sort of, in a way, everybody's kind of related to everybody. Everybody's an uncle or a cousin or a nephew of somebody, In the old days, they used to have big families. So, for example, my best friend and the guy that I work with, Armando Tech, he has 7 brothers and a bunch of sisters. So every time I say, who said, he's, oh, he's my brother, she's my sister, she's married to me, he's married to my sister. It's really funny. Anyways, So the purpose of oh, and on the second floor, I almost forgot, there's going to be a computer center, which will be equipped with Wi-Fi and lots of computers and laptops, and a person to run the place and teach, so that the young people that go to high school are all learning how to use a computer, but when they come home, they don't have access to Wi-Fi, and they don't oftentimes don't have access to a computer. So they can, when they come home from school, they'll be able to go up to the center and do their homework or do their studies in the center at a nominal charge. And one of my hopes is that the people that don't go to high school or aren't in high school, they can come to the center and learn how to use a computer and get on the internet and do, research and learn how to do email and, get into the modern world. One of the things that's been happening in this village since I started going there in 2001 is that it's changed dramatically. Like the world that we all know in the US and Canada is invading the underdeveloped world. And I use the word invade because some of it's really good. For example, when I first went to this village, nobody in that village had ever gone to a doctor or seen a doctor. Lots of women died in childbirth because the women gave birth at home, in the village and stuff like that. And, people died from diabetes and high blood pressure and, infections and things like that. The average life expectancy was in late 40s. Person lived beyond 50. That was considered like really awesome. Very few old people in the village. So now people do go to doctors, and they do have access sometimes to getting medications and things like that. So that's a good thing. When I went there was no telephone, no electric, no water system. Now they have, seems like everybody's got like some form of cheap telephone. Almost everybody in the village is hooked up to electricity, and there is a water tower, and everybody in the village has access to clean water. So that's a good thing. Bad thing is television. So practically every house has a TV in it. And when I talk about a TV, I'm talking about these cost $20. They're little tiny black and white TVs. And they get 3 channels in the village. They all come from Mexico. And the programming is horrendous. I've tried to watch some, and it's pretty awful stuff. Nothing educational or informative. And anyways, but they love having TVs because that's quite a thing to go from no electricity to having a little TV blaring in the background. The reception's terrible, because they don't have cable or anything. So it's like really bad picture, but it's blaring away because they got TV. Yay. I don't think it's been much of a positive influence. The other thing that's happening is in time now, the village used to be almost entirely dependent upon sugarcane. And so what most of the men did was harvest sugarcane and tend sugarcane fields. Now, most of the people in the village don't do that. Lots still do, but get jobs in the city. So ride the bus, or they drive their cars to the city and make money. And lots of people have left the village, which has had a pretty destructive effect, because the village used to be very, very family oriented. everybody was like really, really close and tied into their family. Now, all I hear is like, oh, my son moved away and he lives in Belize City or he lives in Corozal. I never see him. I got grandkids. I only see them a few times a year. And so, it's really kind of heartbreaking because their whole culture used to be centered around family relationships. And now, unfortunately, that's kind of beginning to fall apart for a lot of people. There's a lot of men in the village who work away, either construction or government work or police work or whatever, and stay at their jobs 5 days a week and then come home on the weekend. A lot of men are doing that. Anyhow, I can't change that. I can't fix it. I can't influence it. The invasion of the modern world into the village, like I said, it's a mixed blessing. But what I can do is try and help equip them to deal with it so that they won't be exploited any more than they already have been. And the way that you equip them is through education. And that's what we have been focusing on. And the people of the village are very intelligent people. They're very hardworking people, and they're very excited about their children getting education. And it's one of the thrills for me. And I'll wrap this up about talking about what this community center is doing. Is I was down there a couple months ago, running into people, and they would come to me and say, "Do you remember me?" And I'd like, "No." I'm talking about people in their 20s. And I go, "No." Well, I was a child, and now I'm married and I have 2 kids and I've got a good job. And I have a pickup truck and I've got a nice house. And what's your name? And they tell me their name and I go, "Oh yeah, but you've grown up. I mean, you're an adult. I mean, last time I saw you, you were a kid, and now you're all grown up." I got that all the time when I was down there 2 months ago. Amazing to see someone in their early mid-20s who's now got a job and a car and a wife and kids and a nice home, and and really excited about their prospects for the future, and most importantly, excited about the prospects for their children, because they all talk about their children. Their kids are going to go to high school, and their kids are going to go to college, and they're going to be somebody. Their kids are going to be lawyers and doctors and teachers, and that's what they tell me, and it makes me really, really happy. So that's what we're doing in the community center, is there to support all this.
Awesome. That's a wonderful thing. Nice story at the end, though. You can actually see your progress, or your I don't know what you'd call it, maybe like your efforts coming from young children growing up to adults, and seeing how your efforts have helped them out, and then again to their children and grandchildren and so on. That's a great thing.
Yep.
So you should be proud of that. We have some questions. I mean, if you have some time, I got 10 of them, 11 of them, but I won't. There's no way we're going to get to all 11 of them, but I'll just start banging them off here if you'd like. And dang it, I'm going to have to. Okay. You just tell me when you're ready for them and I can ask them for you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
You're ready. Okay. There's a gentleman here. He's been kind of following our videos. I didn't catch his name, but he seems like a nice fella. He says he's wanted to know if God allows pain and suffering in our lives to bring us closer to him, because he seems to have a lot of suffering in his life, and he wonders if he has that because God's trying to teach him something.
Well, the answer is yes. And the reason why I can say that so confidently is I know from personal experience. God doesn't send suffering on us, but part of being a human being is suffering. I think it was Andre Melior, the this was quite a few years ago, decades ago. He was the president of France. He wrote in a book that there's more suffering in the world than people realize. And I pastored churches for 30 years, got to know a lot of people. And you know what? When you get to know people and talk to them privately and stuff like that, what I found was everybody is suffering. Now, two kinds of suffering, right? Emotional or psychological, whatever you want to call it, and physical. And a lot of times those two things go together. I don't know this man, and I don't know what his problems are. And I'm not comparing myself to him, but when I came back from my near-death experience, I suffered terribly. Jesus told me that was going to happen. He said that I would learn from it. And he was absolutely right. The suffering brought me much closer to God, made me a real strong prayer. I mean, I prayed a lot to, ease the suffering. And I had some success in easing the suffering by praying to Jesus and asking him to help me with it. And it made me seriously a much more empathetic person, because I can totally relate to people who are suffering. Since that went on for months, and since my recovery from that catastrophic situation in my life back in '85, I've had all kinds of suffering. I've got arthritic knees, hard for me to walk. I got a lot of leg pain. I'm 75 years old, and I'm starting to experience pains and miseries all over my body all the time. It's like, but I want to tell you that in my experience, emotional suffering is worse than physical suffering. The reason why I think that's true is when you have a physical problem, one can objectify it. Like, boy, that leg's really driving me crazy, or that shoulder's really, ruining my day, whatever. You know what it is, you know where it is, and you can try and sort of deal with it. Like, take it easy on that, and, try and work around it. And when it happens, you know what it is and what it's about, and move on. Emotional suffering can become our whole consciousness. Like, for example, one of the worst types of emotional suffering is depression. And the cruel thing about depression is that not only is it overwhelming, but it sets up circumstances in our mind where we don't know how to fight it. Like, for example, depression can lead us to isolate ourselves and not seek any kind of companionship or any kind of help, which is one of the ways to defeat depression, is to, talk to people and go to therapy and get some help and things like that. Depression is telling us, nah, that's not going to work. That's not going to help. I'm just going to hold it all in. So often people that attempt suicide or commit suicide, it's a complete surprise to everyone around them, because they said, I didn't know that they were like that. I didn't know they were feeling that bad about themselves. So that's what depression. We isolate ourselves, and we shut ourselves off from other people. But there's all kinds of emotional suffering, like having a broken heart from a relationship that's gone bad, which I know something about, and all kinds of things. If I were to rate suffering, I would say emotional suffering's the tougher nut to crack. It's the hard one. And we really need help. Like, if you had a wound, you would go to a doctor and have it tended to. But when people are wounded emotionally, in whatever way, do they go to a therapist? Oftentimes, no. I don't, they're afraid of it. Personally, I have a therapist right now that I speak virtually on the computer once a week. And it's very helpful for me to get through some of the stuff that I'm going through. I believe in therapy. The word therapy means healing. I'm trying to heal me. I'm broken, just like you all are broken. And if you think you're not broken, you're really broken. Because the only people that don't admit they're broken are people that are in big trouble. They're in really big trouble because we're all broken people. So I think that suffering is here. It's part of the human experience. And with prayer, with the help of Jesus, the great physician, and most especially with the help of friends and professional people like therapists, we can find healing in our brokenness.
Okay, that's a good answer. Gives you a lot to think about. There's another question here, kind of a twofold one, but I'll give you just this one here. There was a gentleman or a lady, actually. She said, Howard said he wanted to go to the world that Jesus showed him, speaking about heaven, not speaking about heaven, but the actual world that you said you saw 200 years from the date you had your near-death experience, if you remember that. She said, but you never did describe it. And she wanted to know if there's any way you could kind of break it down in description. I mean, I do remember you saying something about there not being technology there, but.
Well, I wrote a fairly long description of it in my book, My Descent into Death, about what I saw. Now, I do want to present this, that I visited one place for a little bit. So I don't know what was going on in the whole world. He showed me this one place when we were there for I don't know, an hour or two or whatever. What's going on in the rest of the world? He said that there was harmony and peace throughout the whole world, and people lived basically in small villages. And I don't know about cities, whether there were people that lived in cities or not, but what he showed me was this village, and everybody was living in harmony. The main occupation of the village was raising children. That's the main thing that they did. And Jesus told me that every village had its own culture. And some of them were really into music, and some of them were really into art, and some of them were really into building, and some of them were into crafts. And all these villages had their own kind of culture. But because this was a world where the Spirit of Jesus Christ was in everybody's hearts and mind, this was the kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven that he's showing me. God had given us abilities and powers that God has not allowed us to use yet. For example, people could communicate telepathically, not only all over the whole world, but throughout the universe. People could, and I don't know how they did it, but they could sit down and grow vegetables visibly right in front of your eyes. I mean, they'd put a seed in the ground, and then there'd be a cabbage or a carrot, or, I mean, they'd just sit there and meditate on it, and in harmony with it, it would just appear. So there was no one. People globally controlled the weather. So if some group needed a little more rain, they would put that out there telepathically, and they would get rain. If they had too much rain, they'd put that out there and telepathically they'd put an end to the rain. It was amazing. I didn't see any technology, but since, because this happened in 85, so it's a long time ago, and since then I'm wondering, maybe they had technology and I just didn't recognize it. Like, for example, if we took our technology back to the Middle Ages, they wouldn't, they would think it was witchcraft. I mean, first of all, our technology wouldn't work back there because they didn't have any way to support it. But, let's say we had the technology and took it back and somehow managed to get it to function. They wouldn't know what to make of it. It's just, they have no basis for understanding. I mean, they had no concept of electricity or anything else. It was just like, in Mark Twain's book, Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, he gets in a lot of trouble for the limited technology that he had on him at the time. And of course, the whole plot hinges on him having a farmer's almanac, which told him when there was going to be a total eclipse of the sun. That's the big plot device in the whole story, is that he knew when that was going to happen and predicted it. And they all thought he was like amazing because he knew that stuff. So I was a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. I was like, if they had technology, I didn't know what was going on. I was absolutely clueless, but it seemed to me that their technology, which is not appropriate use of the term, was that they were connected to God and connected to one another. But like I said, the main occupation of the people was raising children. And the children were raised without fear, trusting the people around them and trusting God and living in reverence with the world around them. And they had great lives. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, last thing I'll say about it was, I said, do people get sick and get hurt and do they die? And they said, well, if someone gets sick or hurt, we gather around them and we heal them immediately with prayer, with the help of God. And they showed me that healing service, which went pretty quickly. It was amazing. People just get healed up. The other thing was, I said, what about dying? And they said, well, when a person feels like they've outlasted their body and it's time to go, the village gets together and they release them to go up to heaven. So people do die, but it's seen as a celebration, graduation, if you will, from this world into the next, from the physical world into what we call the supernatural world. So they were happy for people when they decided it was time for them to go.
Awesome. Sounds like a good world.
Yeah.
Next question is, somebody said, Cory, please ask Howard why so many other genuine near-death experiencers say religion and believing in Jesus is not necessary. This is hugely at odds with what you're saying. And she would like to know, I guess, why that is.
There's plenty of people that have near-death experiences that very much say that Jesus and or religion is necessary. So I disagree with the premise that there are so many. The people who have near-death experiences they all have different experiences and they all learn different things. And when they come back, you're trying to talk about stuff that's really hard to talk about. The word is ineffable. Ultimately the near-death experience is really hard to put into words. And so we're all doing the best we can to express that. And what I've talked about, the importance of Jesus and having a faith in him, is what he gave me. I believe that Jesus is God. He's a persona of God, but he and God are one. As Jesus said, the Father and I are one. And I believe that what I was getting was the good stuff.
The good stuff. Awesome. Yeah, I've read many times where other people have. I can see what this woman was asking, because there's a lot of conflicting stories with near-death experiencers. But I just chalk it up to some people I think are just full of shit. No other way to put it, but that's
Yeah.
what I think. Could be wrong, but anyways.
Well, let me just say one more thing. You know, if you've ever been like in a city or out in the country and you get lost and you can't find where you're trying to get to, or trying to find the road to get you there. You ever been given bad directions? I have. You know, I've been sent in the opposite direction of where I wanted to go by someone who I don't know why they gave me such bad directions. You know, sometimes, I mean, have you ever had this experience where like you're asking directions and you finally figure out, you know, you're supposed to be going east and your compass in your car says you're going west, and it's like, okay, this ain't right. So you stop and ask somebody else and they go, you're going the wrong way. You need to be going east, you know, go back the way you came. I mean, sometimes you got to ask 2 or 3 people before you get good directions. Just because someone says something doesn't make it so. Ain't always true.
Yeah, very true. You got to be careful what you're reading, I think, a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Good. I shouldn't have said the S word because we're going to be on camera here. I feel kind of stupid for saying that now, but it comes out. Anyways, what if another gentleman, he's kind of been following each video, but he said, what if we go to heaven when we die and our loved ones don't? Can we pray for them? Do we forget about them? Also, will we see our pets in heaven? Do you have any advice on that for him?
On the first part, I asked Jesus about that, and he told me that the people in heaven do a lot of praying for the people that they've left behind. And it's powerful stuff. Now, with your prayers, you can't make anybody do anything. You know, if you see someone driving towards a cliff and you're praying, don't go over that cliff, stop the car, turn around. You know, I mean, they can listen or they cannot listen, you know. But yeah, they will be praying for us, and the people in heaven are keeping an eye on their loved ones down here all the time and praying for them. They're very concerned about the people that they've left behind. Matter of fact, you got ancestors that you've never met in heaven who are praying for you and concerned about you and trying to help you out. The issue of pets. In my tour of heaven, I didn't see pets, but I've met many near-death experiences who did see pets in heaven. So my concern is not about pets in heaven. My concern is I've had dogs all my life. I have a little dog cemetery in the backyard with about a dozen dogs. You know, I've lived in this house since 1977. Since 77, I've buried about a dozen dogs back there, you know. And I don't know what's going to happen when I go to heaven, because am I going to be met by a dog pack? I don't know. You know, hopefully, so I'm hoping somehow they've morphed into like just 2 or 3 dogs, you know, because maybe somehow the spirits of the dogs reincarnate and become my next dog. So Also, there is evidence in the Bible. I can't do the chapter and verse right now, but that dogs have souls. I mean, that animals have souls too.
All right, good advice. I got this other one. It's kind of a, well, I guess it's kind of just a question, but it's more than a question. She's kind of, I don't think she's trying to attack, but she's just confused. She says, if we are allowed to change in heaven, why would God not allow Howard into heaven? For that matter, anyone that wants to go to heaven. And she says, if Howard was told he wasn't ready to go to heaven, but was willing to change, why would God not allow it? And if we are not allowed to grow, if we are allowed to grow, as Howard mentions, once we are in heaven, then why send Howard back to the earth on a mandatory type of change?
Okay, no, I think that's a perfectly legitimate question.
Yeah.
We came into this world to learn some stuff, and to put it succinctly, we came here to learn to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. That's the lesson. And I hadn't learned it. And God said, I mean, it's basically, he sent me back to elementary school, said, you need to learn the lesson. You don't have to become a nuclear physicist or a rocket scientist, or, you need to learn how to love. And so that's what I was sent back here to do. And that's what I've been working on ever since. And let me tell you, it's a tough course, because every day I have some successes and I have some failures in my ability to love, and I do regret, and I do confess and repent to God at the failures of my loving, learning on a daily basis. And I thank God for the successes that I've had.
Yeah, same idea. Another gentleman, just trying to get right to them. He asked if you believe that the story of Noah was literal, or is it like a figurative thing? Do you think that that actually happened, or is that just a story that kind of guides people?
Seriously, I don't know. And there's no scientific proof of it one way or another. So what I do is I don't question the authenticity of the story. I mean, like, one reason why you might want to take it pretty seriously is that throughout a lot of cultures in the world, there are flood stories that are similar to the one in the Bible. So it's like, that's interesting. That there's all these flood stories in all these different cultures from different places in the world. On the other hand, what's the point of the story? The point of the story has truth in it about what pleases God and what doesn't please God, and what our response to that should be. And that's, I think, the reason why the story is there, is to learn the truth. And then by truth, I don't mean whether the story happened or not. I mean, what is the deeper meaning of it?
Oh, yeah. All right. Good answer. The second part, I guess, I don't know if it's a second part or a separate question by somebody else, but they're asking if you know what Nephilim are. And
Yeah, I do.
And were those the things that were back in Noah's day, and that's why he had to wipe the world clean? God had to?
Yeah, I have a friend that's really into the whole Nephilim thing. It's not something that I've thought a lot about or investigated a lot about, but it's an interesting theory, that there was this wicked race that God had to wipe out. But I'm not the person to ask about Nephilim, because I only have a very, very limited understanding of that whole business.
Yeah, me too. I know that it's a creature of an angel and a human, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, one last question. I know we're getting, well, I mean, it's getting close to the time, and I think my power is going to shut off here because she's pretty windy out. But Big Bang Theory. If you believe in the Big Bang Theory and evolution is a natural selection, and do you believe the world is around 4 to 6 billion years old? And has Jesus told you anything about that when you're time with him?
I did, well, two questions. I'll answer the second question first. And that is that Jesus told me there is no contradiction between science and the Bible, that they're perfectly compatible. They're just two different ways of looking at things. Like, first of all, science didn't exist when the Bible was written. It was completely unknown. Anything that we consider at all science-based did not exist 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. Okay, concept hadn't even come into being. I'm looking at the Bibles to try and understand how science, on the one hand, and our scientific understanding can be reconciled to the biblical truths. And the amazing thing is that they can very easily. Like, for example, start with the creation story in Genesis 1. God spoke the world into being. To me, that sounds like the Big Bang. I saw it's on the YouTube, 5 Minutes to Believe in God, I believe it's called, on YouTube. And it's a Israeli PhD from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he's a theoretical physicist. And he said, every theoretical physicist in the world knows that all the laws of physics existed before the Big Bang. He said, some of us call that God and some don't. But he said, I think calling it God, the mind that knew all the laws of physics before the physical world existed is God. It's a no-brainer. Or it's what we call God. And if you don't like the word God, well, that's your problem. Why are you so uptight about that? What's your problem? So do I believe that God existed before the Big Bang? Yes. Do I believe that God spoke the world into being, and that calling that the Big Bang? I don't have any see any contradiction in that. I don't have any problem with calling those, God speaking the world into being, and it's just like from nothing, boom, everything was, and in terms of the time element, since he brought that up, there's no time in God's time. This is like one of the huge stumbling blocks for people. It's like, to God, a minute is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a minute. That's from the Bible, by the way. God's time is way different than our time. Way different. And the fact that the universe is billions of years old and this world's billions of years old and stuff like that. Like, with God, that's like, yeah, what's your point?
Yeah, kind of just senseless, really. Excellent. I got a question. A gentleman here wanted me to ask you about if you've read any Swedenborg books. I'm assuming he means Emmanuel Swedenborg.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name.
Yeah.
And if you do, any books he's read, and if he understands and agrees with them. So basically, do you have any books of him that you've read? And if you
yes, I like Swedenborg. I don't agree with everything he says, but he has lots of good stuff and lots of wisdom, and I admire him very much. And I can't remember that. It's been a while since I've read Swedenborg. Actually, it's been quite a while. But anyways, the one that made a big impression on me was Heaven and Hell.
Heaven and Hell. Okay, I'm thinking about getting a book myself to read. So like one of those ones. Yeah, he asked several questions about the Emmanuel thing. Something about do you believe that the inner meaning was symbolic? Like Jesus has 3 levels of meaning: literal, spiritual, and heavenly. I don't know. Other than that, he's what he, I guess what he's trying to get me to ask you is the idea of the Trinity as three aspects of Jesus within himself, one person rather than outside of himself. For example, Jesus, the soul, represents the Father, his body, the Son, the Ghost, the Holy Ghost representing his actions on the earth. Yeah, I don't know if you have any comments on that or not. It's just
I
yeah.
I don't really I don't feel qualified to answer that.
Yeah, me neither. That's it for the questions. There's so many questions, but like they're all very similar to one another. So I try to just group them together. So you kind of answered everything that they have here.
Can I take an opportunity to do a commercial plug?
You can. Yes, no, I was going to mention something about that. There was a gentleman on here from not your last video, but I think it was one of the videos before that. He seems to be a little bit of a troll on our videos. He keeps saying stuff like you're only in it for the money. And he's like, the only reason why I can back that up, because he always introduced his book at the beginning of the videos as a selling feature. And I'm like, I said, obviously he hasn't listened to our whole video series, because you have stated many times how you've actually, you could have made a lot more money as a professor than you have this way. So I wanted to throw it out there because
also in response to his thing, if he goes to Amazon to buy my book, there are used copies for sale for $2 and $3. By the way, I don't get any royalty. I don't get any money when people buy used copies. And I advise people all the time, if they want a copy of my book, go to Amazon and look for a used copy, and they can get one for $2 plus postage. So this guy who says I'm only in it for the money has no idea what he's talking about. He's an empty-headed idiot to say those things. But what I do want to plug is I talked about the community center that we're building in Belize. If anyone's interested in learning more about it, and or if they would like to consider making a donation to the building and equipping of this building, which would be much appreciated, you go to GoFundMe, GoFundMe.com, and to locate this particular project, you put in community center in San Victor, Belize. Or if that's too much to remember, you can go to my website and there's a link to the GoFundMe site, and it'll take you to community center in San Victor, Belize. And there's a video on there, and there's some explanation about it and stuff like that. And there's an opportunity to donate if you want to. And that's one of the ways that we're building this building. And by the way, not only do I not get a cent for the mission work that I've been doing all over the world, including Belize, but I've also put in, I'm not saying this to brag, but I put in tens of thousands of dollars of my money into these projects. Whatever.
Well, you're a good man. It's only money the way I look at it, so that's a good thing. But yes, I'll definitely put that on there. I'm gonna mention this while we're still on camera, so kind of answer other people's questions. But there was a lady asking about where she could go and purchase your paintings. I noticed when I went to your website, they come up, but there's no way to pay for them. And I think she's looking to order one there or something. So
email. There's a contact thing that comes directly to me in my email. You contact me, and I'll give her specifics like dimensions and prices and stuff like that. And what else available? What the paintings on the site are just a small sample of the hundreds of paintings that I have and I've done.
Yeah. Do you do? You said you do sculptures too. Like, do you mean like 3D sculptures or?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you do custom work? Like, if somebody was to give you a picture, could you replicate it, sort of thing, or? Portraits, I guess, is what somebody was asking me earlier, like a portrait of their sister, their brother, their mother, or something.
I could, but I don't really want to do that kind of work.
I got you. All right, so they can email you if they want to get some information on sculptures or paintings. Is what you're saying? Okay. All right, that's about an hour now for you. and we were able to make it through the windstorm anyway, so that's good.
Good, good.
Yeah, seemed to work out good. All right, and I appreciate you doing the questions and answers. I know that they're separate from the book, but they're kind of related to the book as well. So
Sure, absolutely.
yeah. All right,
Next,
so,
next time we'll do chapter 12, right?
I think it's 14.
14. Oops, I'm
Yeah,
always wrong.
yeah, it's all right. We did 13 the last one, so it'll be 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll talk to you then. I appreciate you doing this for us.
Thank you, Cory. Always a pleasure. I'm writing down chapter 14 so I don't forget.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me too. I appreciate you doing it. And next Friday, maybe, or whenever you're good, you just let me
Yeah.
know. All
Great.
right. Well, have a great day and God bless you.
God bless you and God bless the people that are watching.
Thank you, Howard. See you later.